Let's bring in retired four-star General Jack Keane, Fox News senior strategic analyst and chairman of the Institute for the Study of War. General, you've been watching this minute by minute, and the newest information that we have really is what just came from the American president, President Biden, who outlined these sanctions against Russia. How powerful do you think they are? How is this perceived by Putin, do you think?
Well, certainly Putin has made that calculation dealing with sanctions. We've advertised for months what we intend to do with sanctions, and he's war-gamed all of those sanctions, and I don't think it's going to have any deterrent effect on what he is attempting to do in Ukraine. If we felt that these sanctions were going to have some impact, I would dial up all of them now and then dial them back based on him dialing back his troops. But he's got a deliberate multi-phase campaign plan that he's executing. And it's now coming into focus, Martha, and we get a better sense of it. It is deliberate, and he's going by phases. Phase one is put troops into the territories where the Russian separatists already control. Those troops are there. He denies they're there. They're from the 8th Combined Arms Army. Second phase, he's already laid claim today to the full republics, the two full republics. 2/3 of that territory is owned by Ukraine military, and it's heavily militarized. Phase two would likely be initiated by pre-assault fires, air, missile, rocket, long-range artillery, and ground mechanized attack across the line of contact, simultaneously likely into both of those republics where the Ukraine forces are employed. Phase three, probably a pause. And does he go into the rest of the Donbass region, into eastern Ukraine, Mariupol, and down towards the land bridge with Crimea? That's speculation. And then phase four is what we're all talking about. He has multiple options on how to topple and put pressure on the Kiev government. So I think these phases are going to unfold. They are deliberate, and sanctions are going to have absolutely no impact on the plan that Putin is executing.
Would anything have an impact? I mean, President Biden had this moment to speak moments ago. I just want to play a little bit of what he said, and then I want to ask you, what can be done really at this point? Watch.
Who in the Lord's name does Putin think gives him the right to declare new so-called countries on territory that belong to his neighbors? This is a flagrant violation of international law and demands a firm response from the international community.
So, General, we know that that Putin doesn't see it that way. He detailed in great, exhaustive essay all the reasons that he thinks Ukraine is part of Russia. He believes it always has been, and he blamed, former Soviet leaders for giving it away. It was very, interesting from a historic perspective. But so you hear President Biden there saying, that it won't stand, essentially. But what changes that?
Well, Putin really has a vision here, and he's revealed it a couple of times. Once in the missive that he wrote last July in 2021, which he contributed to significantly, 5,000 words, and certainly the hour-long speech in the NSC meeting yesterday. And when I look at that, when I boil it down to simplicity, what he's about, he's taking the post-Cold War boundaries and reconstructing them. Because he absolutely believes when the Soviet Union collapsed, the United States led an expansion into Eastern Europe with NATO at the expense of Russia and their security. And he wants a new security arrangements, and he wants to address those boundaries. And that's his vision. And he starts with Ukraine and Belarus. And acquiring both of those under his orbit is formidable. And anybody that thinks he's not going to pressure NATO, if he carries out what I'm talking about, is misguided. So I absolutely believe that the president is right in reinforcing the Baltics. I think we should even put more troops into Poland than what we're doing. We do have an armor brigade there. It's great to see the paratroopers that General Petraeus and I have commanded. We have great love for them. But armor mechanized forces in this fight is really what makes a difference. And we've got to upgun ourselves in these NATO countries. So, yes, that's the right move. I would also keep the door open for military aid to Ukraine and keep that flowing. and make certain that there's still things that they desperately need now. Let's stop the resistance that we've had for a year and a half and not giving them the things that are on their shopping list that would truly help to impose cost on Putin. Some of that's going to be too late because they don't have the time to train their people on them. It's more sophisticated weaponry. But there's other things that we can certainly help them with.
Robert O'Brien, the former national security advisor, said he sees a scenario where it's very difficult for Zelensky to hold onto power. And he says that we need to support an insurgency and basically help organize elections outside of Ukraine for expats and refugees and continue to give them support. Do you agree with that? And do you think that's feasible?
Well, I definitely agree with it. And while Putin certainly his military is an overmatch for the Ukrainian military, they will, and he can defeat them. He'll never defeat the Ukrainian people. I mean, they will resist and fight till the last Russian soldier leaves their soil. But listen, let's be honest about this. I mean, putting together an insurgency campaign with munitions and weapons and capability, organization, and the rest of it, that takes time. We can assist with that. Putin has also calculated that. He's looked at it and he says he knows how tough the Ukrainians are. He certainly understands that better than we do. But he's put that into his calculation. He knows that's protracted and it'll have marginal impact initially and maybe long-term impact for certain. And he's accepted, if he conducts the full-out invasion, the cost of all of that, as he has accepted the cost of what he believes is a tough sanction regime. And you know, about the sanctions, he's experienced a history of it. They seem to diminish over time, and the country also gets used to them over time. Yeah. So that's another factor. Now, the sanctions that we are talking about imposing, I'm not suggesting that we don't do them. I'm all in favor of them. I'm all in favor of hurting Putin significantly in taking down his central banks and foreign investment, and also, I believe, dealing with his industry sectors and certainly the people involved. I agree with all of it. He should pay a price. It's just that I don't believe sanctions are necessarily the deterrence that people think they are. I think they serve a purpose in dramatizing the scale of the international violation that Putin has committed here. And you get others to contribute in that sanction regime. And then, and very importantly, it's about punishment and retribution for the scale of that violation. Those things have to be done. It's a moral imperative to do things like that. But don't kid ourselves to think that somehow this is going to deter Putin from the objectives that he feels he intends to achieve here in Ukraine.
Well, we know the White House has said that diplomacy and deterrence were their two avenues for preventing this. It seems that at least at this point, diplomacy has failed, although the White House says they're still open to any potential diplomatic avenue. The deterrence, you're saying, is not going to be useful in terms of stopping the activity that they're undertaking, and who knows how much further they are determined to go. Yeah, go ahead.
One more point, Martha.
Sure.
The Biden administration threatened serious sanctions after an invasion, and they used that basic premise to deter that invasion. We now have an invasion. So that strategic policy imperative has failed. That's just the simple facts of it.
Which I would point out you have said all along on that. You've been a strong voice saying that nothing would deter them unless it happened before they went in. And obviously they've determined that it's not going to be that punishing, and it's worth the gamble. It's worth going in. And as you say, these sanctions tend to deter over time or diminish over time because they figure out ways to get around it, and countries get a little bit weaker on getting stuff in there and wanting to have that trade. So we've seen that happen over history as well. General, thank you so much. General Jack Keane, who will be with us throughout the course of covering this story, I think, for some time. General, thank you very much. Always good to have you with us.
I'm Steve Doocy. I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.